Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. There is a game of football tonight and a lot of Celtic fans will be saying, is it really worth playing this game tonight? Are Celtic really in a position to even compete when it comes to this game? Because let's face it, we are way behind. We're way behind in the level that this team's going to be at tonight because they just throw money at players. And it could, if the other evening was embarrassing, we're going to have to go for a defensive masterclass like we did in Italy before from Brendan Rodgers for this one tonight, which has left us to talk about transfers. Yep, the lack of transfers. We'll get to Chris Sutton in a minute. Quan has wrote on his Instagram, "Hi Celts, it's time to say goodbye. Didn't want to say goodbye like this. Really sorry, I didn't help the team a lot. But I was a proud member of this team. I will always support the team. Good luck with the season. Glasgow will be green forever." It was a weird one, the Con one, because he came in under Ange Postecoglou, and there was a lot of players that came under Ange that slipped under the radar. And talking about players that's slipping under the radar, well, this one hasn't. And I'm really surprised at this one, because I think at 23-year-old, I think that Adam Montgomery will now never get his chance to be a Celtic player. I think that the Adam Montgomery time has passed him, and I'm getting loaned out to Livingston, of all clubs, on a season-long loan. Tells me that Brendan Rodgers doesn't think he's good enough to be even backup. And I think that that's maybe a disappointing thing. And you're thinking, do you know, is Inamura really better than someone that came in that's came up through the ranks of the club? And if it is, it then asks question marks of what's going on with the B team. If Inamura, who's only been a full-time footballer, let's put it into perspective. Inamura's been a full-time footballer for 1 year, just over a year. Young Adam Montgomery has came through the Celtic ranks his whole life. And if the Celtic B team haven't managed to make him a better player to be ready for the first team, then I don't know what will. At 23-year-old, you should be really knocking on the front door of the first team. And I think that because Adam Montgomery's not, and he's getting loaned out again, he's been loaned out a lot over the last 5 years. And it makes you think, yeah, Brendan Rodgers just doesn't see it in him. We've let Montgomery and Anderson go this window, and surely one of them could have been good enough. Yeah, Brown Warrior, I think so. I think I don't know if there's... every single day gets us asking more and more questions about what's going on at Celtic. Is it Brendan Rodgers doesn't feel that the players are good enough to be first team players? I still think there's a power struggle going on at Celtic. I think there's a massive power struggle going on at Celtic once again. And it all points to one direction, and not the band. But it has led to Chris Sutton, who's never short of a word or two when it comes to Celtic. Chris Sutton loves doing the rounds with the Celtic supporters clubs. But he's asked what's going on. If Brendan Rodgers' answer isn't a warning, then I don't know what is. The boss can't even think about letting Yang go. Now, this is to a comment that Brendan Rodgers was asked the other evening. Asked if Yang will be going out on loan to Norwich. And Norwich did make a cheeky bid for the player. And Celtic said, no, we're not selling you the player for 500,000. We may let him go out on loan to you. But we haven't brought any wingers in of any substance. I mean, they say Benji's a forward and a winger, but they're playing him in a holding midfield role. And he wasn't playing as a winger in the Annihilation the other evening. So darn that Harry Styles, says Michelle. Paul Baird's right in this morning saying, what's going on? Brendan Rodgers is on his way out. I think that we are beginning to see... If it plays out, if the preseason keeps playing out the way it's playing, and if the season plays out, I can see it being a season of discontent with a certain section of fan base going after the board, going after Brendan Rodgers and annihilating players that fans don't deem good enough for the club. Chris Sutton said it was an honest answer to a straightforward question, and it highlighted where Celtic are just now. He was asked the other night about Yang's future at Norwich City, as they want the winger on loan, and he says, I can't even think about letting him go right now because Yang is a current starter, and that is no disrespect to the player, but if that is he wasn't a first starter last season. And if you can see why Daizen Maeda is maybe looking on the pitch going, we're getting weaker. Do you know? And maybe that's why Daizen's like, maybe I should just jump ship. It gets in the players' heads. You know, players don't want to be part of a squad that is deemed to be weaker. And if you look at the squad going back over the last 4 years, and this goes in 4-year cycles. If you look back at Celtic are going in 4-year cycles, aren't they? If you look back for the first 9 in a row and the money that was spent on that, and then we bring in Ronnie Dyler around about the fifth, sixth season that are going for 9 in a row, and we spend less money. Is this what's happening again to Celtic? I hope not. Because if I mean Paul Baird's always going. He's been going on in the last 3 years about wanting Brendan Rodgers out. But if he does go, say to think the worst, right? Say, just thinking out loud here, think the worst, and Brendan does go. Who do we bring in as a better manager? Do you know, who do we bring in to take us to the next level? Celtic will not go up a level. They're going to regress. So it's be careful what you wish for, because I think getting rid of Brendan Rodgers will see us go backwards again to take 2 steps forward. Do you know? And it's a very dangerous game that the board could be playing. Why are we keeping Yang for the bench and play Benji at right wing, Engels midfield starter, replace Paulo Bernardo like we did? I don't know. But anyway, Chris Sutton has a good talk about it. He says, if he's a starter, talking about Yang, if that isn't a warning, then I don't know what is. So they can't afford to let Yang go, but they could allow Nicholas Kuhn to go without having a replacement lined up. We all know that Yang's not the answer when it comes to look, Yang can have a couple of good games in pre-season, and we all know that he didn't have the stamina to turn up in games a lot last season. He had 3 weeks of him being good. It's not like Celtic are scrambling about selling players to then keep the club running and make the club better. You know, we're not strapped for cash. You know, there's no need to wait until the trail end of the window to get players in. Rodgers has always been clever about his comments in the media, said Chris Sutton. I've said this as well. He tried to clean up stuff about some of the signings being club investments, but he's saying he got the final say on all incomings. I think that the board and the people upstairs that do have this power struggle going on with Brendan maybe got a bit pissed off with Brendan saying, you can't say they're club signings when you signed them off. Well, Brendan could say, well, I didn't fucking want these players in the first place. They're not the first choice players I want. And that's the real power struggle that's going on behind closed doors at Celtic Park. And if you can't see that, well, we'll wait and see at the end of the season. Brendan Rodgers has got to the point about these players we're coming from. It's about the level they are at. It isn't about where they come from. You know, it is. Brendan Rodgers did say about Inamura. He said he's not first team ready. If Yamada got if Celtic lodged the documents in time, and Yamada, I'm beginning to think that documents weren't placed with UEFA in time. Why would Brendan Rodgers and all the backroom staff think that Yamada's deal was done on Monday? All the paperwork should have been lodged on Monday or whenever it was. I mean, the deal was done before Monday. It was announced on Monday. So the deal was done the previous week. Everything was signed for the previous week, and it was announced on Monday. So Brendan Rodgers and the backroom staff would be thinking, right, all the paperwork should have been lodged last week so that he's fine to fly with us over to Italy. He wasn't. The registration wasn't with UEFA. That's someone upstairs in Celtic holding paperwork back. Who has the final signature on everything Celtic? Michael Nicholson. He has the final sign on every bit of paperwork that leaves Celtic to go to UEFA. He has to sign it. The CEO of the club signs. It's on his head. That's all I'm saying. We're in serious trouble if we don't bring in quality as soon as possible, says wee man Sham. Yeah, where's no way Brendan is staying if things don't change. He's clearly pissed off. I think so, and I think that you can manipulate the people upstairs. If I might be wide off the mark, my thinking, right? But if Brendan and all the backroom staff take a player, they know how long paperwork gets to get done. They put him on the team sheet. They then get a slap around the dish. What are you doing, Celtic? You can't play him. He's not a signed player. His international registration hasn't went through, says Mr. UEFA, sitting looking at the team sheets. They then get the phone. Oh, Nicholson, you plonker. Do you know, it's starting to look like Del Boy and Rodney Trotter that's running Celtic. Del Boy's Nicholson and Rodney Trotter's Chris Mackay. But we as fans will still be here at the end of the day. Chris Sutton then goes on about the fact that we've seen Projects players come in and he's made it crystal clear he needs more experienced one in the door and quickly. Chris Sutton's just picking up on what every other fan's picking up. He then goes on to say, where are they? The same names have been branded about for weeks now. Plenty of talk about transfer fees and whatever. And then they don't come, they go elsewhere. Celtic can't afford to hang about and make their minds up or until the club drops their valuation. Why aren't replacements in the pipeline before players leave the club, like they were under Ange Postecoglou? Ange always said, we know a player's going to leave the next window. We get a player in this window, so that when the player that is going to leave leaves, it's no big deal because we've got the replacement in. We can all see that change that's happened at Celtic over the last 4 years. And, you know, Chris Sutton isn't saying anything that the average fan isn't, to be honest. Since Kyogo left, there's been a warning to me, to be honest. Exactly. Letting a prolific goal scorer, and don't give me this bull, but we've got Dyson. Dyson's a winger. We never brought in another striker. We still haven't brought in another striker. We brought Johnny Kenny back on loan. We brought in a young guy in Osmond that's not ready for the first team. Don't butter it up in any way you want. He is not ready for first team. It's unbelievable that we still to this moment, we're a week away. A week tomorrow is the start of the SPFL. And do you think that St Mirren are going to be looking at this current team going, we're going to get hiding on the opening day of the season? St Mirren will be looking at this current Celtic team and going, do you know what? We can take Celtic on the first day of the season. We can take them. And they'll be confident about that. Because I'm not confident in winning against St Mirren. Brendan Rodgers has no chance of winning a power struggle with the board. No manager has, though. No manager has. So, if you look at the past 10-year period, and we go back to Ronnie Dyler, right? And we spent less money with Ronnie. You know, it was a period, as I call, managed decline through the Ronnie years. Less fans turned up because the standard of the player wasn't as good, and it was crap football, and it was a downsize. It was as simple as see. Then Celtic go up high and go, right, we need to get bums back on seats. We're getting Brendan Rodgers. We get a little, we ride the wave again. We ride the wave, and then Brendan Rodgers, his hand is tied behind his back by the same board by not getting in players. And then Leicester goes, you know what, we'll take Brendan Rodgers off you, there's 10 million. Lawwell goes, deal done. Deal done. All because Brendan Rodgers said he wanted to leave at the end of that season. And Lawwell went, no, you're not leaving on your terms. You leave on our terms. And then what happens? We bring in Neil Lennon. We fuck up the 10. And then we bring in Ange Postecoglou. Everybody says, who's this guy? The Scottish media have a complete rant at him and say that he's absolutely nothing. He brings in all these fantastic players. Some absolutely crap players. But then we get back to winning ways. And then Ange decides he's had enough. Ange said in public, what's the difference between buying a 2 million player to turn into a 10 million player or buy a 10 million player to turn into a 25 to 30 million pound player? That's Ange Postecoglou's words, his own words. He knew that Celtic were not going to go to the spending level that he thinks that Celtic needed to go to be better in the European football context. And that is where all managers will never win a power struggle with Celtic FC. And do you know, we just have to suck it up as fans. We'll cope with the league. Will we cope with the league? I don't think that we're more worried about... it's pretty basic across workplaces to have diversity and encourage new ideas, way of thinking. We seem to be stuck in the same way of thinking with the same old boys club. Michelle says, horrible to say, but St Mirren do beat us. The board needs to realise that they fucked things up and they can't blame Rodgers for this shit show. We're miles clear domestically. I don't think that we are. If we are miles clear domestically, why didn't we win the Scottish Cup in May? Well, we're terrible. Thank you, dear. Well, we're absolutely terrible in the Scottish Cup. We ran out of steam. The squad is not better than it was last season. We've brought in 2 players. The squad is not better. Do you know, we've let a lot of players go. I've got to admit, for the first pre-season in a long time, I'm not confident that we may win the league. My heart says yes, we'll win the league, but unless Brendan Rodgers gets in 5 really good players between now and the end of the window, it's the first time in a lot of years. In fact, it's the first time since before Neil Lennon came in as manager that I've not been confident that we'll win the league. I'm just saying, couple of injuries. I know exactly. We couldn't beat St Mirren on Trophy Day. Francis. We couldn't beat St Johnstone on St Mirren on Trophy Day, and we couldn't beat Aberdeen. Then the show, the big one. You know, the highlight of the season is the Scottish Cup in Scottish football. Winning that is like winning the Scottish Cup's everything, but we couldn't do that. We will scrape if anything, unless something changes. We won the league with 17 points, for fuck's sake. So you're happy with the way we finished the league? We might have won. Points gap means nothing at the start of the season. Points gap means nothing. We all start on 0 next week. Every single one. So I'm going to check the table. We start on 0. We're light on fire. Are you happy with Adam Eder going into the season as your main striker? Is that made us stronger? Remember, the majority of the points were amassed the first half of the season. We didn't break forward really the second half of the season. We've got too cocky at the end of last season. Yep. The league was done and dusted before Trophy Day. Yeah, I know it was. But Brendan Rodgers said the year before, and Celtic made a lot of money out of it, putting out the video, this is our time. This is when we rise as a club. This is we get better. We get better until the Scottish Cup final. We go out on a high. We went out on a whimper last year. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen this season, but the players ran out of steam. And if the players run out of steam before the end of the season this season, I'm saying there's a possibility and an opportunity for another club to put a lot of pressure on Celtic, and especially if players start to think that the manager will not be here towards the end of the season, the gap will not be 17 points. Hearing this nonsense makes you want to give a folk a slap and wake them up. Oh dear. It's a hard sell. It is. Rodgers' pass backs to go forward still was caught out. Well, Brendan Rodgers is trying to change the system that Celtic are playing, but all we're going on about is the fact that Chris Sutton, I don't have faith in this board to bring in 4 or 5 quality players, says Ali Boy. Johnny Kenny would be good if he's given the opportunity. He's not a Dyson, and he's not a Kyogo, Paul. He may be good, but you're comparing him to Adam Ida. And although Adam Ida scored 20 goals last season, will Johnny Kenny score 30 this season? No. Not a chance. Your cockiness stopped us from winning the Scottish Cup. We thought we could just go out there and play nonchalant, says Michelle. This is very true. Let me just do this. Let's do a quick poll this morning. What else to bring in? There we go. Let's see how the fans feel about this one then. Will Celtic bring in the players, 4 or 5 of quality that Brendan Rodgers needs before the end of the season? That photo they uploaded of Brendan Rodgers says it all. He was absolutely raging. Yamada could be our new secret weapon. Let's hope he is. Because if he's not, why is Brendan Rodgers still in the market for a top level striker? BR to blame for failure, and he would get prized for success. He got 26 million last year and wasted it. Brendan hides behind the board when things go wrong, but praises it when things are good. Interesting. He wasted it. Brendan Rodgers doesn't pay the price. It's the board that ultimately pay what players are worth. Everyone knows that Adam Ida is a £3 to £5 million player. It's not Brendan Rodgers' fault that the Celtic... Stop trying to change history. Okay, Michelle. We all know what happened with the Adam Ida thing. Brendan Rodgers wanted Adam Ida, and the board mucked about, rather than get things done. And let's just save this. And we need to stop really trying to change history and saying it was Brendan Rodgers' fault we paid 11 million. It wasn't Brendan Rodgers' fault we paid 11 million. It was the board's fault that we paid 11 million due to the fact that they mucked about. Oh, that's not. Why is that not saving right? Let me go back onto this. Nope. I need to do this instead. Raging. Feel the rage here. That's better. That's easier. Let's get rid of that team from last week. The last game, just a couple of days ago. It wasn't last week, it was just a couple of days ago. To see the rage of Brendan. This is the rage of Brendan. Mr. I am angry. Mr. I am not getting my way. Just keep that there. So the poll's going in fantastic form this morning, even though there's a lot of people saying it's Brendan Rodgers' fault. Will Celtic bring in the players 4 or 5 of quality that Brendan Rodgers needs? 78% say no. No. They won't. I'm off to Dublin. The only reason we'll pay big for players is because they're a selling club. However, I don't think it's even about Ali Boy. I don't think now it's not about paying big. And Brendan Rodgers said that. It doesn't need to be a £10 million player. It needs to be a player of a certain quality. And Brendan Rodgers feels that we're not bringing that in. He's obviously asking for a player that's at a price between 5 and 8 million, say. You know, there's players that we've been linked with at 5 million, and we go in with a low ball offer of 1.5 million. That's documented in the media. Do you know it? And maybe that's what Brendan Rodgers is having a dig at. Do you know, it's like, I'm not asking for 10 million. I'm not asking for 15 million. There's a player there at 5 million, fits the bill, does what I want. Right? It looks like the player that I want, and you go in with a bid of 1.5 million. Come on. Dane Murray is a must. New deal for Dane Murray. Yeah, it is. If we don't qualify for the Champions League, those 3 or 4 players will not come in. If we're hanging off until we qualify for the Champions League, we're not. I've said it before. We're playing football on a Thursday night this year, and playing on a Sunday, and that's a bloody ball ache. But as you know yourself, the board wants to keep the money, says Stephen Johnson. Michelle says it's a bit unfair that Brendan is getting all the stick, getting told to piss off. He's a joke. He's not managerial material. Yeah. But look at that face. Hi, Brendan. Fucking look at me like that. God. Give you the fear. Celtic's lack of ambition. Could it be pushing an elite manager out the window? And if it is the scenario, and I think that it is the scenario that is getting played out. I've said it before. I think there's a power struggle going on. Something simple like Shin Yamada's documentation not being... There's ways that an employer can piss you off. And we all know that. There's ways that an employer can piss you off. They can hold back documents and not put things through on time so that things don't happen. They know the snowball effect. And you know, it's pushing triggers and it's pushing points, right? And I do it to the missus all the time. Just keep poking away until she just fucking goes... It wants to kill you. And I think that's what they're doing to Brendan Rodgers. I think they're just keeping on poking away and just pissing him off till he goes, fuck this shit, I'm off. And then we go and bring in someone of a lesser quality. Because that's what's going to happen. Do you know, that's what's happened. I know Celtic can't spend the money he spent at Liverpool, but some of the low-balling bids I've heard this summer are embarrassing. Yeah, Joey, that's what I'm talking about. Do you know, Brendan Rodgers has said he's not after £10 million players. If he's got a £5 million player there, go for it. Get him in. And what did the board do? I'll give you £1.5 million, mate. What the fuck? The board are acting like a wee Jakey for Kilmarnock. You know what I mean? Apparently that's Rodgers' last surprise. Morning, James. Brendan Rodgers will walk in January. Nah, he won't walk in January. Constructive sacking. Yeah, it is. Joseph, yeah, you said it. It's a way of pushing the manager out the door. Do you know, it's the leftover power struggle from Lawwell era. And you've got to remember that Nicholson's Lawwell's right-hand man. I still think the day that we lost, was it Dominic Mackay? Was that his name? The guy that was coming in for the rugby, who was a massive Celtic fan, and he had a great business head on him for what he did to Scottish rugby, and you're thinking he wanted to take Celtic forward on the international stage, but he was chased out the door by Celtic because he wasn't a yes man to fucking Lawwell. So anyway, here we go again. It's Lawwell's fault. Geese peace. We could go far in the Europa League. Doubt it. Damien Duff next Celtic manager. Don't say that. That's a step backwards. That is a step backwards. That's like going for that's Ronnie Dyler material. Don't care what you say. It's Ronnie Dyler material. John McGinn all over again. Yeah, it is. Roy of the Rovers signing for us next week. Let's end that poll because that's only one way. Let's do another quick poll. There we go then, since you're talking about it in the chat. Would you take Damien Duff as the next manager? Personally, I think that's a Ronnie Dyler level of signing. You've got to remember that Ronnie Dyler, he won trophies at his club. He did win trophies at his club before he came to Celtic. Would you take Damien Duff as the next Celtic manager? Straight off the bat, 88% say no. Well, here's asking. Do you know this is what will happen? Do you know? Be careful what you wish for, because everyone that's wanting rid of Brendan Rodgers, Ten Hag. We're never getting Ten Hag. I'd rather have Blythe Duff. If Brendan does go, which that won't be the case, I would go for Robbie Keane. Interesting. Back the board. It's the only one we have. We're chatting like sweetie wives. It's all speculation and chit-chat and nonsense. That's what happens when we've got a game against a team that spends hundreds of millions on players tonight. I mean, are you looking for... I'm going to give this one a minute. I mean, are you looking forward to the game tonight? Marco Rose, Goodson, if Brendan leaves. I'd rather have Duff Beer Guy. Oh, Jesus. Paul Tisdale, last seen sleeping in his bed holding his contract. Yeah, there's that. Anyway, Celtic do play tonight, and it's going to be an interesting one. So are you looking forward to the game tonight? And what will be the team that Celtic put out? Celtic will win. Paul Baird goes right in with it, and he reckons that Celtic will win tonight. I'd rather take Lennon back than have Robbie Keane anywhere near our club. Give Big Tony a call. I would love Ans to come back, but sadly he knows how the board works. Yeah. Anyone even want to watch that game tonight? Of course I'll watch it. I'm going to do a watch along. It'll be interesting to see the formation that we played, to see if we play any better. We can't play any worse than what we did the last game. I think there was a lot of things that went wrong in the last game. Brendan Rodgers tries to butter it up and say, there was a lot to take for the first 60 minutes. Yeah, well, we're 2-1 down in the first 60 minutes. 1-1, you know, you can talk over that game all you want. Don't watch friendly games, load of pish. Just call yourself a Celtic fan. There was a time that I used to go to every single Celtic friendly. Paul the Tims spent all that money going over to Italy. Again, there's a guy that's a fan for you. Never misses a game. Got a lot of respect for Paul. Does that. He's the one that says, if we're going out, we're going out. We don't play Como Lanky. They play Ajax in the final. Yep. Scott Brown, Mark Wills for management team. No, won't happen. Why would Scott Brown get rid of his best mate that's been with him his whole managerial career. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Paul Baird's on the spin, 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 and more spin. You spin me right round, baby, right round like a record, baby. Stop watching the Ajax game at half time to cut the lawn. Oh, Jesus. Stephen Jones says, Baz, are you sure? Stephen, I'm not sure about anything today. It's a Saturday morning. I'm live on YouTube, and I'm not sure about anything. We'll just wait and see what happens tonight. 8:30 on a Saturday night. It's like, Jesus God, what are they thinking? I mean, jeez, couldn't make it any worse for me if you tried Celtic. I know it's 7:30 Celtic part time, but 8:30 here on a Saturday night. Let's get some more of those comments. Why do you mean why? I love there seems to be some kind of argument going on in the comment section. I can't read them all. Brendan has some fans round his little finger. He's the grand master of diversion. I don't think he's don't say he's a grand master. He cutting about with a flute and stuff. Jesus. Oh man. How many million are Celtic getting for playing in this tournament? I don't know. I've no idea. I mean, they would have got some amount of money from Adidas to have the inaugural Adidas Cup played at Celtic Park against Newcastle. For Celtic to give Newcastle 10,000 tickets, and for that massive area, and that's Ronnie Dyler era. Do you know, that's the type of thing that happened under Ronnie Dyler. We all remember the big part of the stand that was empty, the top half of the tier, quarter of the top tier was empty under Ronnie Dyler. That game against Newcastle was a warning to the board, if you ask me. The only thing you're doing is shitting on my club. You're blathering pish for no reason. Who is? Oh, Jesus. Oh, man, honestly. Time to calm down and get behind the team, you lot. You're all arguing amongst yourself. I tell you. The comment section just gets out of control here. Let me just scroll back up here. Yeah, I'm sure he is. Jesus God. Anyway, I'm done and dusted for this morning. Got to be on for 38 minutes. Let's finish that poll. Are you looking forward to the game tonight? I will be on an hour and a half before kickoff as per normal to get the team as announced by Celtic. Will it be the same team as we had before? Will Brendan Rodgers ring the changes? There's not really many changes. Well, there is a few that he can make. Will he go out with his strongest team possible? Finbar's on it today, isn't he? He's just having a complete rage in fucking comments. Go and get a coffee. You've obviously not had a coffee this morning. I mean, it's 9:30 with you. Go and get a coffee, calm down, and just chill out. Let's finish that poll. Anyway, will we see Yamada? I have no idea. It all depends whether the paperwork has been completed in time. And if it was completed yesterday, and I don't know if Brendan Rodgers or anybody at Celtic has confirmed that the paperwork was completed yesterday for Shin Yamada to play in the game tonight. Anyway, you massively lovely, angry people in the comments this morning. It's been absolutely fantastic having you. Have a fantastic day, Celtic fans. Wherever you are, I'm away to sunbathe all day. I'm not even going to think about Celtic until later tonight.